Good day, everybody. Welcome to our Being Whole series, where we discuss health topics related to the body, soul, and spirit of a human being. Your hosts are myself, Helena, and my husband, Gerard, from Your Friend in Need Health. We specialize in natural health products and services like the live and dry blood analysis, Christian counseling, coaching, and a few other services. With us in the studio, we also have Schalk van Rooyen. He is a life sciences expert. Welcome, Schalk. Can you please tell us a bit about what services you provide?
Yes, mainly health consulting services on various health topics, also scientific consulting, which was part of my work as a natural scientist, plant preparations, plant extractions, formulations, concepts, and that's all part of the company we have, Olinia Naturals, where we have various products as well, but also the services that we provide.
Thank you, Schalk. We would also like to thank the team from My Media for their role in making these videos possible. We appreciate you. Our discussion topic for now or today is if planet Earth was made and prepared for human beings. And some of you may ask, how is that linked to health? But I think you'll understand as we go along. Gerard, will you please open with a prayer for us?
Let's pray. Thank you, Lord, that we can give this whole session into your hands, and thank you that we can discuss around how wonderful we have been made and how wonderful earth has been made. Lord, we just ask that you will just allow us to absorb everything that's valuable, and that this may change our lives. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Okay, so let's start with this discussion. I think you'll find it interesting. Normally, if you listen to people, you will find that there are more or less three views in terms of where the earth comes from. The first one, and the most popular, because you still find it in universities or other training institutions, is that there was a Big Bang theory. And if you listen to them, it's always based on that everything sort of developed by themselves from whatever. People from rocks, but the earth from some sort of fluid. I don't know if you remember exactly, they call it green substance or something, but I don't know where that came from. But anyway, so some people believe that, and many people who studied also used that as a point of departure, so they tend to believe that if they're Christians or not, so somehow they fit it into the Christian view, which is another one of the views that you find. And then you also get people who worship Mother Earth, who think that Mother Earth is actually some sort of a god. So they may believe in the Big Bang theory as well as that, but they actually worship creation. So with the Christian view, we believe that God made everything from nothing. So obviously Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit was also involved in this as part of the Trinity. But God made everything out of nothing by speaking it into existence. So if you read the Bible, that is what you're actually supposed to believe. Like I mentioned earlier, maybe because of their studies or whatever, some people started talking about a gap theory to put the millions of years somewhere into the Genesis creation story. So do you know about any other views?
Well, I think one of the things that is so common with all presentations that are being brought, I mean, we've seen so many things that people provide as information, and they base it on facts. And they always start off with a cliche, millions and millions of years ago, and even in some Christian circles, they also say millions and millions of years ago. And basically, but thereby accepting the evolutionary theories. And I wonder, why is that? And it is something that has become part of us, and maybe it's something you've got to really look at it. So listen, is this really, are they actually saying the truth? And bringing a truthful thing across, this always comes in the beginning. And it makes you wonder.
Yeah, especially what I always wonder is when they speak of millions of years ago, and they always use the carbon dating method and those things, and that's a fairly accurate method, but to say what happened millions of years ago is really not, to me, anything that's possible, because you can't say for certain a million years, if you think about how long that is, and they speak of, certain fossils and so on being 3.4 million, 3.6 million years old. And it's always just, for me, not an exact science when you look at the number of years they ascribe to these fossils and to these events. So that's just one thing that sticks in my mind is that millions of years. It's just...
Yeah, how can you determine that?
It's a really tough one to determine, but it's been so entrenched in the things that are said that everyone just now starts speaking, millions of years ago. And then it's always, for me, it's something you can't pinpoint exactly.
And they will say it's difficult to argue against it because nobody saw it, nobody was there.
Yes,
it's
so
not,
then you
it's
can't
not
argue.
Real history, it's like a prediction. Or
The other interesting fact that I also find that people are saying, listen, but we part of evolution and we are actually experiencing it. Look how things change and look how this animal has adapted now. So that's another question that actually raises, they're trying to confirm that everything has actually evolved for so long. And this is how every story starts as well. And so we're going forward from here also with evolution, and that's the other thing. And actually, you have to question that.
Yeah, well, I think they base a lot of it on the so-called fossil index, if I'm correct with that. And that has more, if you accept or you believe the Bible, there was a worldwide flood. And what I've read somewhere is the weight of the different bodies determined where they ended up in this fossil index or layers that was formed after the flood, after the earth dried up again. But anyway, let's look at the earth from a biblical perspective. Will you please help me read some of it? So I'm starting off with Genesis 1, and then Gerard can read, and then Skalk can read one for us. Genesis 1, verse 1, in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. So every Bible-believing Christian is actually supposed to believe this. So the second one is Psalm 8.
Okay. When I look at your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars, which you have set in place, what is man that you are mindful of him, and the Son of Man that you care for him? Yet you have made him a little lower than the heavenly beings and crowned him with glory and honor. You have given them dominion over the works of your hands. You have put all things under his feet.
Okay, Skalk. Please.
When we read the next one, Nehemiah 9 verse 6, it says, you are the Lord, you alone. You have made the heaven of heavens, with all their host, the earth and all that is on it, the seas and all that is in them, and you preserve all of them, and the host of heaven worships you.
What I like about this one, it's also referring to the host, which I think are the angels. So many people think we are not alone in this universe. They are right, we are not alone. Exactly when God made the angels, that we don't know exactly. I don't think the Bible really tells us, except if one of you know about something where we can find it.
Nope.
No. Okay, so Isaiah 45 verse 12. I made the earth and created man on it. It was my hands that stretched out the heavens, and I commanded all the host. Also referring to the host again. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to read Acts 17 verse 26. From one man he made all the nations that they should inhabit the whole earth. And he marked out their appointed times in history and the boundaries of the lands.
Yeah, that's actually more than just the creation. It's the whole planning also behind it. So
there's more control on the creation, but also on the lands and who actually controls it. It's very interesting.
Yes, but I like the planning, because that's actually similar to what we're doing today. If you want to design something, you start planning. and you work on the design and you plan it out, and then you take the steps to create it. Okay, God can do it much quicker, like He can just speak it out. But I'm sure there was some sort of planning involved if you look at the detail in every living being, and even things that's not living. They may have some electric pulses in it or whatever. There may be some life, but I'm talking about living beings that can do something. But anyway, Schalk?
Yeah, if we also look further at John 1 verse 3, all things were made through Him, and without Him was not anything made that was made.
Yeah, well, I think this one is telling us it was made out of nothing.
Yes.
So if we look at what people are making, we are using what God already created, and you somehow do something with it. And it's so complicated that it can take you years to figure only a portion out of what He made. So that is actually where technology comes from, is you find things that's already there, and you find a purpose for it.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to read Jeremiah 32 verse 17. Our Lord, our sovereign Lord, you have made the heavens and the earth by your great power and outstretched arm. Nothing is too hard for you.
And that Jeremiah was a prophet. So for the people wondering where this comes from, it's prophets who heard from God Himself, from the Lord Himself, that is saying this. Romans 1 verse 20. For His invisible attributes, namely the eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived, even since the creation of the world, in the things that have been made, so they are without excuse. So what this is about is that you see things around you, you see living beings, you see how complicated it is, even plants and insects and whatever, grass even. That's growing, everything that's growing by itself, you can see it's complicated, you can see no human being could have made it. And when you still think it all started all by itself, without any intervention, you are actually without excuse. If you one day asked about it, so why did you not believe?
The incredible thing about this, it's been perfectly made. And if we look at all the let's call it the creations of man, we're talking about the synthetic things, like, just for example, synthetic hormones that have been created to treat people with. We found that there are many side effects, and actually there are bad things happening as a result of that. And brings me back to the place of what was made was perfectly made. And it doesn't do this kind of thing.
Yes, it goes with if the word was made for man, so everything that was created with man in mind.
Yeah, and we see that complexity as well in nature with plants. Like you said, when they make things synthetically, like a hormone, they always use a blueprint from nature. So in plants as well, what we see is, and me as part of my scientific work, whenever you apply the sort of pharmacological way of isolating something from the plant as a single molecule, and you try and amplify it and make more of it, and you use that single isolated molecule, it is either more toxic or less effective. Exactly. It doesn't absorb in the body as easily, but when you use the whole plant, then it works much better. So that plant, as it grows and as it was created, has all the molecules perfectly in the right ratio and in the right concentrations. And then the problems start when we try to isolate some of those molecules from the plant.
When humans interfere.
Yes, and we try and the reason for that is they try and patent it, because you can't patent a plant because it's a natural resource and it wasn't made by you. So they isolate the molecule and try and use that single molecule, because that's the thing that you can patent, or you can patent your process that you used. But we see that the complexity in nature is not to be tampered with, because when you do that, you start changing things, and you either lose activity, like I said, or you increase the toxicity, or it's not well absorbed in the body. And the same principle applies with sugar, and that's why sugar is so bad for us, because they isolate it from the plant and they super concentrate it and refine it. And that's why eating fruits, yes, they do contain sugar, but it's complexed with other molecules in the fruits. So it's much better for you, and it's in a more raw, natural state.
Yeah, and it was made for your body, so your body
Yes.
knows what to do with it.
And
So
it's complexed with other molecules, so that sugar is used in a different way than when it is isolated.
I'm going to bring up something controversial as well. I mean, with the manufacturing of vaccines, and I'm not going to go into detail because my knowledge of that is limited, but what I do know is that the process of developing a vaccine is a very complex thing, and it takes a long time. And in the one hand, they're trying to get a certain effect on it, and then most of the work that comes after that is actually to try and minimize the side effects that the vaccine actually provides. And they want to bring it down to a level where it's manageable. And so I think the process of being, for us to actually release a new vaccine makes it that complex because of the problem of the side effects. So nothing is perfect. And then the question arises, is this really the right way to go about this?
Yeah, there are other examples as well. What I mentioned about the plants and the molecules, that the way the plant is there is in the perfect ratio. The same applies, which links back to was Earth created perfectly for man. And another clue to that is when we look at streams, natural rivers and streams, when you look at the stream flowing past you, you see every now and then you see these little coils in the water, these little vortexes.
vortexes, yes.
It's all around. As you see the river flowing, it forms these small little vortexes all around. And that is the process of natural flow of water. That's why little pebbles and rocks and stones in a riverbed, they're usually round and they're smooth. It's the action of the vortex of the water. And that is a process that creates what we call structured water, which is what our bodies use. And nothing is applied to that water. It happens by itself. It's the natural flow of water. And when we interrupt that and we process the water and we purify it, we actually destroy the structure and we create dead water. So all these purified and whatever waters that we drink are not really good for us.
And your tap water is even worse.
It's worse. And that's why another example is rain falling from the heavens is charged water. And you can see it immediately. If you water your lawn with the hose pipe, tap water, it doesn't die, it grows,
but not as fast as when it rains.
After rain, it's almost the next day. That
everything
grass
changes.
is as green as you can imagine.
Exactly.
And it grows, you can see the growth already.
You can see it grow. And after the rain, it grows probably 5 times faster and better than when it's used with tap water. And that's an example of that structured water effect that I explained. And that happens naturally. There's no one standing beside the river stirring it, and that vortexing action of the water is what creates the structured water, which is in the water molecules arranged in a more hexagonal shape. And that's perfect for our bodies to use, where you have then cellular hydration on a cellular level. So that is also a clue to Earth being created perfectly for us.
Yeah, and when you go on hikes in the mountains, you enjoy that water. You actually understand that it's better for you.
And it's filtered
even
through the rock.
Even though nobody told you that it's...
Some of you think it tastes so much better than anywhere else.
Yes,
it's true.
You can taste the liveliness of that water. You can actually taste it, and you taste the tingling, a slight tingling of the minerals in the water. You taste it on your tongue. And that,
So something tells me our lifestyles are not what it's supposed to be. Okay, why we're also discussing this topic is you will all be aware that there are many people, and it seems if all of them believe in the Big Bang Theory, busy trying to find other planets to colonize. That's one of the things they want to do. Then they also think it's necessary for man to control the universe. So if there's an asteroid on its way hitting or they think it may hit the Earth, they want to be the ones that stop it from doing it. So that is very common now. You all know about Elon Musk and his plans, and he even had like a comic type of animated plan or image of what it's going to look like if they colonize one of the planets. So, but we will discuss that later. So, but just in general, I don't know if everybody is aware of it, that millions, actually not millions, billions of dollars are spent on space programs for that purpose, to see if Earth is in danger, to do something about it, and then also to colonize other planets.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, why would they want to look at other planets? So that is, well, I did a little bit of research, and some of the things that I found was that they say the Earth is overpopulated. We have about 7.8 billion people on the Earth. And then they also worried about climate disruption or global warming, which is, I found, 1 degree Celsius over a period of 100 years. But if we're going to look now later on to the other planets, you will see why this doesn't even sound significant at all. One of the other things they're saying is there's pollution on Earth. They are complaining about deforestation, and that the biomass is now half of what it was. So later we're going to look at some statistics that you will also see this may not be a very good reason to go and look for another planet. The population sizes of animal species declined, that they are worried
true,
about. Yeah, but they're looking at planets with nothing on it. So
Okay, that's zero.
about 1 million plant and animal species globally are threatened with extinction. And I think we need to go and ask, why is that?
At least they're still there. Yeah?
Is it not because
Yeah.
of our lifestyles?
Yeah.
That's maybe that's the reason. They also concerned about insects busy disappearing. They concerned about 85% of the global wetland area lost in 300 years. A halving of the live coral cover on our reefs. A decrease in seagrass by 10% per decade over the last century. About 40% of kelp forests have declined. And the number of predatory fishes fewer than 30% of what it was a century ago. And then I think we should maybe discuss some other reasons why they really want to do it. Because if you go and compare the Earth still to other planets, and we will go into what they found there, those reasons don't sound like a reason to spend billions of dollars, maybe taxpayers' money and whatever, from different countries, not even only NASA and the USA, it's different countries, and then also many private companies are now involved in it. So what do you think, why would they?
In my opinion, as people like to do research, they like to explore. I think that's the big thing on that. So
Like a challenge.
yeah,
like having a challenge.
it's a challenge. But now to spend so much money on a challenge to satisfy someone's, let's call it ego, doesn't make sense. So
Or ambition, yeah.
let's add something to it that makes it worthwhile. And then they say, okay, why not populate another planet? But that's the one reason for it. The other reason, I think, is because people say, listen, maybe this Earth maybe get destroyed, and if it gets destroyed, I want to live, so let's try and make another way out. And so that's how people think about it. And all the reasons that have been mentioned now don't seem to be sufficient motivation to actually try and move planets.
Well, if you read Revelation in the Bible, it is indicated that Earth maybe, it seems, will be destroyed by an asteroid or something like that. So maybe they read the Bible, but they didn't read the beginning. So,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and there's a reason why that will happen in the end, because of all the things that we are doing currently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think, Skalk?
Yeah, it's linking to what Gerard said about there's also many of these anti-aging movements and anti-aging ways of seeing. So it's a whole thing of these people or the whole movement of wanting to preserve their lives in a very
Exactly.
selfish way, actually.
Live longer.
Live longer,
better.
live longer. The whole focus
it.
on that,
Yeah.
and the moving away of the acceptance of God's will. And that's what I believe. No matter what you do, your time is set in stone. You know, and it's all according to God's will, because the whole reason for us being here is also His will. He breathes the life into us. So I think a lot of these things have to do with preservation of their lives and the preservation of what they have. And I don't believe that life on other planets will be possible. There might be in an isolated way or in a capsule of some type. But
Temporarily.
Those planets, they either don't have the right temperature or atmosphere to sustain life. So I think it's just a search for something based on their research and based on things they want to achieve.
Yes, and show off what man can do,
Yes.
and sort of worshipping the technology they can develop. Because I found some other excuses as well, where they say they're actually creating jobs while they're doing this, but I think it may only be a handful of jobs, because you need to be highly educated to develop the things that they are busy with. So it's not just anybody. So it won't be a lot of jobs, I don't think, for billions of dollars. So that doesn't seem to be a good reason. And what I've also picked up is that there are actually a competition between the countries with what they are doing. They all want to be first. And someone even mentioned this may lead to a space war in the end between countries from the Earth, not between aliens or different planets or whatever. And another thing that I've also heard is that they also think about mining the planets. Like they're now doing mining on Earth. They want to mine some minerals and stuff from other planets.
Well, I mean,
Right.
it's
This makes me think,
Or whatever they find in space, so asteroids or whatever.
I mean, this makes me think, for example, for the whole of Africa. If you're looking for minerals, there are so many minerals that are still in the ground. If you wanted to use them, there is so much that has not been mined. Why would you want to go to another planet to go and do that?
I think they're concerned that people will run out of minerals in future. They'll mine out the Earth, and then there won't be any minerals anymore. So something is wrong with the way we're living. That's the only thing I can see. And the strange thing is, if you go on holiday, and I don't know, not everybody may enjoy it, but we love camping. You like to go back to the basics, to living in a tent, drinking water from a stream, doing all those things. But for your day-to-day life, you want something completely different. Okay, so we have an image on the screen now of our beautiful blue planet, and even if you compare it with images from other planets, it stands out. You will see some clouds with this one. There are not a lot of clouds over it, but you see the blue seas and you see green vegetation. And then you also see areas which, like desert-like areas, which I think was also caused by men in some way, either through sin or misusing the earth or whatever. But I'm sure all of that was also green at some stage. But anyway, so we are. The Earth is the third planet from the Sun, and there's now an image that's clearly showing you all the planets in our solar system, and showing the Earth as the third planet from the Sun, which is also a perfect spot as we're going to go through the discussions. We will realize that more and more.
Okay.
But what I'd like us to discuss now is, why do you think Earth is still, you mentioned a few examples already, like the rivers and so on, and the water, that's perfect, but what else on Earth is still today, even with what people did wrong, is still ideal for human life?
Well, the specific composition of the atmosphere, the air that we breathe, it's a specific ratio of elements that is in such a way, the concentration and also the pressure of the air, making it easier for us to breathe.
Supporting life.
And supporting
health,
life. And that specific air pressure is also a very important thing that enables the exchange of gases in our bodies. And that's why we need the gravitational pull as well. And those things are important for proper gas exchange, proper even nutrient exchange in our bodies. So that's another cue of the perfect creation. Even the Earth's atmosphere is still in such a way, well, without that we wouldn't have been able to live, because the concentration of nitrogen, oxygen, those things in the air is in such a ratio that it's perfect for life.
Now, that actually implies that we can live here on Earth and you can go anywhere, compared to this whole plan with Mars. Here you have got no restriction. You can go anywhere, almost. Well,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes,
except for the cold areas.
Yes, we are going to look more at Mars and Venus, but what you're also referring to now already is, if you look at gravity, you can't just walk on the surface there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are the perfect weight. Everything is just it's the perfect gravity for us to function.
Exactly,
And just
yes.
you don't need a special suit to be able to walk outside. So
Yeah.
you, and that is, I referred to this animated thing that they showed on one of the YouTube videos,
Yeah.
is where you live in a contained area. So everything, with everything, you're dependent on man-made things
Oh.
Yes.
to be able to live, which means they can cut off your life at any time.
Yeah, I also think the big thing which we need to mention here is we're living in an environment where you can actually have got the ability to feed yourself. You can get the right nutrition in without much trouble. You can grow plant seeds. You can actually make harvests. You can fish. Everything on this earth has got all of the things available that you need.
Yeah, and vegetation was made before man was made, according to the Bible. So God made provision for your food and your water and everything you will need, and even the animals that's on the earth, everything that will be beautiful to you, everything you can enjoy.
One of the things that hasn't also been thought through, if you think about the man on the journey to the moon, I mean, the way this Earth is protected magnetically, it's protected from radiation in a sense that actually allows us to have sustenance and continue to live without having implications. And so we are actually protected just the way the Earth's magnetic fields are present. Which is not the case with any of the other planets. So Earth was made for man. This is if you look at all the things we've discussed, it just says this is the place where you can stay.
Yeah. And
Yes, and if you look at specifically the distance of the Earth from the Sun is from all the planets, if you compare all the planets in this solar system only, it's the perfect spot. It is not too hot, it's not too cold, even though they are now very concerned about Earth warming. That is even not significant yet.
well, I
It's,
mean, if you just, I don't know if the final effect might be warming, but if you look at the last 4 or 5 years, just here in South Africa, in certain cities, if you look at Pretoria, it actually became colder. We had 4 or 5 cold summers in a row now. This being the 5th one. So if that's just from observation.
yes, and you
That
can
I see that, I mean, the average temperature, and I've actually measured some of the temperatures, it actually cooled down with about 2 degrees, where our usual average temperature in summer is around 28.8 or 28.9 degrees Celsius. The last few years it's been 27 and maybe lower. So I'm not saying that it's definite, but that's an observation of actually some cold cooling off effect that's happened.
Yes, it's
And
not
it's-
consistent.
Yeah,
It
so then
varies.
it rains more than it's colder. It rains less, but it hasn't been that hot. It's been a few cold summers that we've had.
Yeah, and it varies,
True.
like, and
Yeah.
maybe it's just part of a cycle,
It's
or
cyclical.
it's depending on
yeah.
on different things that we don't take
Yes.
into account, not necessarily what they are saying,
And
that the animals are the problem and everything else is the problem.
Yeah.
I don't even think what we do really make an impact
Yeah,
on the...
I think what they mention about global warming, also what they don't want to admit, I think, is that it's part of revelation, it's part of a prophecy, it's part of the cyclical change that Earth is going into anyway.
Yes, regardless of what we are doing.
We can't stop it. We can't do anything about it because it's according to the prophecy, according to God's will. So if you read Revelation, you read about these things. And now they're trying to find reasons. That's why also with these alien landings and so on. So whenever the revelation comes, then they can say, "Oh no, it's an alien abduction." So it's easy to find reasons for things that happen that you don't want to explain or can't explain. Then you build up reasons for it so that you can say afterwards, "Oh, but it's an alien abduction or something."
Yeah, we know from a biblical perspective there are aliens on this earth, but not from other planets.
Yes.
So specifically, they even with the research I did with their research in terms of other planets, they didn't say anything about finding these aliens in space somewhere on their way to Earth or on their way back or whatever. So that might be interesting to see how that develops. What is also important is the sun assists the body in making vitamin D. So, and I think also our distance from the sun makes it possible to walk outside in the sun without a spacesuit. So
exactly.
You will need it. So if you go to another planet and based on that animated plan that I've seen, how they're going to populate one of the other planets, you will not be able to be in direct sunlight.
Yeah,
you will have to be in the spacesuit, so you will have to get vitamin D from other sources.
Yeah.
And anyway, the Earth was created with a wide variety of seed-bearing plants. So that is there. So if they need to move to another planet, they will have to take seeds from Earth. They will have to take things that God created on Earth to those planets. They are you will see now, they are very excited about basic stuff that they find there because they believe that life can develop from that. But we know that's not the case. And how long will that take?
Yeah. Those things, like you say, and like I mentioned earlier as well, for most of your pharmaceutical drugs, the blueprint, like you said, it's taken from nature. It's taken from somewhere that it exists already.
Yes.
Most of those are not created out of nothing. They have a clue from nature, and then they mass produce or synthetically manufacture it in the laboratory.
Instead of using it as it is.
So taking seeds from Earth to plant it, it's always you have to take from Earth the ideas and the blueprints and the clues to make the things that you want.
Yes.
So those are things that already exist.
That's true.
And we just use that.
Yeah, and one of the Bible verses we read clearly indicated that God made everything from nothing. He didn't take it from somebody else or what was already there. Okay, but on top of all of this, we have wind. We have rain, wind clearing the air for us, rain, we keep on getting new water.
Yeah.
Okay, we're not going to go through the process how water is made, but it's a cycle. Also that cycle was designed.
Yes.
So, and then also the oceans, more than 70% of the earth is covered by oceans. That's also playing a role in what you breathe in. And how the earth absorbs what you breathe out again. And the same goes for the vegetation that you don't find on the others. So let's go and see what they're planning for us. Okay, before we go there, I just want to highlight some statistics that I found recently. Life on Earth is dominated by plants. They make up 82% of the global biomass. So that is quite a lot, even if you take into account that we have the deserts on the Earth. The animal kingdom makes up about 0.4% of global biomass. However, our livestock outweighs wild mammals and birds tenfold. The human account for just 0.01% of the biomass.
Oh.
So they say the earth is overpopulated with human beings, but we're only a small portion of what's on the earth.
Negligible.
Yes, yeah, that's true. 86% of life is in terrestrial environments, 13% in the deep subsurface, and just 1% in marine environments. And more than 1.7 million species identified and described on Earth thus far. And they say it's not nearly everything. So that's only what they found up to now. So that is quite a lot. Okay, we've discussed a few things why Earth is so supporting human life and also animal life and plant life and whatever. And I'm sure our audience can think of many more things. And maybe they're eager to share it with us. But I just want to mention something that I'm currently busy with. We mentioned earlier that one of the reasons why they want to move to, or not one of the reasons why they want to move to other planets, one of the reasons why they're doing the space research is to protect Earth. So man thinks that it's, or some of them think that it's our role to protect Earth from anything that may collide with it. So very recently, they built a spacecraft to collide with an asteroid called Dimorphos as a test to move an asteroid off course. So they actually showed the footage of that, and they did hit the asteroid, and they were very excited. But I couldn't find facts on what actually happened. Did they really move the thing, or they were just happy that they hit it? What is very interesting about this project is the project's name is Dark Mission and the operations name is Sinner. So it is as if they understand what they're busy doing. So we should not underestimate them in terms of if they know what they do.
Yeah, they've got a clear agenda, I think.
Yes, they really know what they're busy with. Okay, so according to Jim Green, a director at NASA, Mars is actually the #1 option to populate if they want to move people from the Earth to another planet. So Mars is called the red planet, obviously because it has this red color, and it's the 4th planet from the Sun. So if you look at where Earth is, it's a bit further. I can't really say a bit because they're also talking about very long distances. It's further, but it's further from the Sun than the Earth.
Yeah.
So to summarize their options first is first they said Mars is the #1, and then Titan, that is a weird moon of Saturn, and then Venus, and then they list many other options. But I decided to not go into all the other options because it may become very boring. So, okay, so Mars is Earth's neighbor. I've already mentioned the 4th planet from the Sun. So, what you can already determine for yourself because of the fact that it's it's further from the Sun than the Earth is that it's much colder than Earth due to the distance from the Sun. So it means it's not the ideal temperature for man. At the equator, temperatures can reach 20 degrees, which is fine, but its poles can plummet as low as 146 degrees Celsius. And then I also just want to mention, and we are worried about the 1 degree that they say that the Earth's temperature changed. Like you said, if you look at it for yourself, that's not what you necessarily experience.
No, and it might just be short term, like I say, but these extremes on these other planets are, you can't override that, and you'll continuously have to live in a controlled environment.
Yes, so if you're worried about the Earth's temperature and you want to go and live in a controlled environment on Earth, you can do it.
You can still do it here.
You can go and live on the South Pole or the North Pole or the desert. So
but those temperatures and also, like I said earlier, the most important there is the atmosphere is not suitable.
Yes.
There's not breathable air on Mars.
Yes, and they know it themselves. If you look at what I found, they definitely know it themselves.
Yes, so it will take many more years. Even, I don't know, but this is very controversial, but even they're talking of colonizing other planets, and I think they're very, very far from that if they ever would achieve it, which I don't think they will. Like I say, in a controlled environment, maybe. But even the thing that most people believe now, even the moon landing is controversial.
Yes.
And did it really happen or not? It might have been just a big marketing propaganda scheme to, like they're always in a race. And in those years they were in a race with Russia to show their power and to say that, look, we already landed on the moon. But what I always thought is, when they landed on the moon and those pictures of the first man stepping onto the moon, who photographed him?
I actually looked at a video by a photographer, a guy who is very experienced with that specific type of camera that they say they used. And that it's very interesting to watch because based on what he is saying, it was not possible to take those photographs with that camera there.
Something simple, the first man stepping out. How was he photographed, or where does those pictures come from?
Yes, there was some external force somewhere taking the pictures. Yeah,
so them talking about colonizing other planets, it's not really. You will only be able to live in a controlled environment, and only for a certain time, because the gravity is also going to affect your health. There's no real gravity. There's not an iron core in those planets, most of them. So those cores of the planets and the gravity that's not like on Earth, you need to step onto soil with your feet for sustained health. And that sounds very simple, but it's really a thing, and you'll always have to wear these suits, so that it's not really.
This animation that I looked at that is specifically for colonizing Mars or one of these planets is exactly what you're saying. It will be a 100% controlled environment. You will always be inside. If you want to go outside, you will have to go outside in a spacesuit. So when you go outside, there's about nothing to see. There's no vegetation. There's nothing growing outside. So if they are going to have plants inside, why would you want to go out? There's nothing. There won't be rivers. There won't be birds. There won't be any animals. You can't breathe the air. You can't go out for fresh air.
No, that's
you can't. You will have to stay inside, and they will have to provide oxygen all the time and control the temperatures inside. And that's why I say your life will be 100% in the hands of man. So it's not like in South Africa, if something goes wrong with your air conditioner, you call somebody in to come and fix it, you will die if something goes wrong with the oxygen provision.
At least on those planets, it's the perfect place for a suicide, because you just need to step outside.
Yes,
you don't even have to do anything. You just step outside without your suit.
What is interesting in this animation, so over a few years, they actually plan to build prisons inside this controlled environment. Wow. And but it may be easier to just push them outside.
Well, let's look at this from a perspective. I mean, it's already hard for man to be successful in surviving here on Earth. And you mentioned the prisons. There are many prisons here because of the difficulty. Because, I mean, many people end up in prison because of complexities to survive, or greed, or whatever. And just imagine being in a confined space like that. It's just going to be worse.
Yes.
Yes, but why would you want to go through the trouble, or so much trouble, to fix things while we're messing things up on Earth, where it's still very nice, where we are still supported by Earth? So now you want to build something from scratch, and because they want to build the prisons, they know that people will mess up.
Yeah.
So, and we always mess up. So now you go to an environment where everything is, you can say already messed up, or it's not
Yeah.
even there yet.
Yeah.
So it's-
I want to bring something important to the picture here, and I think this has been discussed. Everything that you're doing on an external environment on Mars is man-made, man-controlled, and basically man believes that he can actually control his environment perfectly. What we've experienced on Earth has got a different element in it. If you look at history, and what's the biggest history book that we can refer to? It's the Bible. And if you look at the stories in the Bible that you see there, you will actually pick up that there was the element of trusting God, the element of being dependent on God was most predominant in it. And that means here on earth, where life was already difficult to survive, all the patriarchs and all the people throughout the ages have always come to a place where they say, Lord, I turn to you. I have to trust in you. And you can pick it up in many stories. You can pick up in the stories when you look at things that have happened in wars, when you look at things that have happened in famines, the same thing has occurred. So the spiritual side of man as a whole is integrated with his relationship with God, and has always come into the forefront. And that is a very important thing that we need to note. Now we want to move man to a location where he controls everything. Something doesn't seem to be right.
yeah, I think what they should also not forget is God will also be there.
Mm.
So if they
True.
want to flee from God, that's not possible.
Yeah.
But anyway, just for interest's sake, I quickly want to go through what else they found on Mars. First, I want to mention it's the second smallest planet in the solar system after Mercury. So if the Earth is already overpopulated, they want to move to a smaller planet as a possibility. They are excited. I'm not so excited about it, but they are excited about the lake under the planet, South Polar ice cap. They apparently found that in 2018. They say there are water coming from craters in the summer. The soil is more fertile than originally thought, whatever that may mean. There are more nitrates and nitrogen in the Martian soil than what was ever imagined. And they discovered methane there. What I found is that they're very excited about any basic thing that they find, because they think life started from all those basic things by itself. So where those basic things came from, that I don't know. So there's high levels of radiation. That's definitely a big issue.
Yeah.
You've mentioned earlier that we protected on Earth from radiation. So there, the protection isn't there. The atmosphere on Mars has about 95% carbon dioxide. That makes it impossible for human and animals to live there. So they know that. So, and that's why it's also in an animation. You will have to live in a controlled environment forever, unless they think they can change the radiation and whatever else to be able to live outside one day. The cold temperatures we already mentioned. Gravity is estimated at 38% of that what you find on Earth, so which comes with its own problems. Some of the nutrients plants need to grow and survive on were found on Mars, so they're very excited about that. But the environment's not ideal to grow plants. There are currently no oceans and vegetation on Mars, so there's absolutely nothing. It's this red planet that we referred to earlier. No life found yet, except maybe basic forms like amino acids, and maybe only because the same God made everything. So it's possible to find it everywhere. Okay, and I just want to refer again to the plan made by SpaceX. I think their own plan shows that this will be a terrible life. I looked at it; it makes you depressed.
Oh, yeah.
if you just think you can't go on holiday to the sea, you can't go in to stay in a forest, you can't never swim in a river or a dam again,
And everything
except
you do is risk.
if they somehow can create it inside. But I think there's a lot more to people being happy than just getting food every day and staying alive. There are other things that's important. The beautiful things. You'll never hear a bird sing. So some years back, I went to an African country where I was sitting outside and you could hear absolutely nothing, and it bothered me. You couldn't hear any crickets or frogs, even, or birds. Nothing. It is completely quiet, and it bothers you.
Yeah.
You think it's peaceful, but it's not. It bothers you because you want to hear those sounds in the background.
It's not normal. Yeah.
Yeah, so it won't be normal.
Yeah,
So
that
I
you
can foresee that people will be very depressed if they
Yes.
go there. Except for the health issues that you mentioned in terms of air quality
Yes.
and not being able to get vitamin D3, walk outside with barefoot on the soil
Yeah,
or
you won't
whatever
be
the
able-
case may be. So their second choice, I've also mentioned in the summary before, is Titan, Saturn's largest moon. So it's not even the planet, it's one of the moons of the planet. And Saturn is planet number 6 from the Sun. So, and just there's an image that's showing you exactly where it is.
I think
In 2005 already, they landed a probe there, responsible to analyze what's going on there and communicate it back to them. But they lost contact with it after 72 hours already. So what they found in that short period is a temperatures of minus 180 degrees Celsius at the landing site. The surface pressure was 1.47 times that on Earth. The primary constituents of Titan's atmosphere were confirmed to be nitrogen and methane. And that there's huge methane lakes. It has storms and even potential ice-spewing volcanoes.
Oh.
And there are scientists that believe that Titan is actually drifting away from Saturn. So it seems to be a very risky option.
If you want to live there for thousands of years, yeah.
Well, and that's the second choice.
So I think that my perception is that all these attempts to find life or to try and install life on other planets is a dogged refusal by humankind to accept God's word and to accept their place on earth and to accept their fate and all these things. So it's a refusal to accept God's will and His word.
A very expensive rebellion.
Yes, so that's my perception
Yeah, the sad part is that children at school, students at university, everybody are influenced by this because they think these people are geniuses. And I think a lot of them develop respect for these geniuses.
Yes, and we're only blessed with intellect. It's also a gift from God.
Yes.
Yeah.
That our intellect and being able to do or to think about these things.
Yeah, the ironic thing is that they're wrong.
Yes.
If you compare it to biblical wisdom, it's completely different from biblical wisdom.
Yes, and also the Bible was not really made for intellectuals exclusively. It was made for everyone. It's written for everyone. So the example of the eunuch slave or the worker of the queen that
Yes,
sat on the
that's-
wagon, and Philip approached him.
Yes.
And he asked him, he was reading from Isaiah, and he asked him, so what you reading? He said, well, how do I know what I'm reading if no one explains it to me? But he was a very learned man, this eunuch slave. He was a very learned man, and Philip had to lay it out for him, led by the Holy Spirit. So the Bible is not in that way seen as a mathematical model necessarily, or trying to be understood by looking at it intellectually. There is a certain naivety that still has to remain in us, a certain humbleness, naivety that has to remain in us, and we have to believe like children. And that is, and if you start questioning these things, you say, but how can I? Well, you just have to do that.
I think what you're saying actually brings me to the reality is that people here on earth don't believe that God is in control of anything here.
Not all of them,
Well,
fortunately.
I say a lot of people.
Yeah.
And the reality is God is trying to bring people to the point where they recognize that He's actually in control of everything. And that He's in control of your life, and that He's in control of the earth. And that that His plans with this earth are not for evil, but to actually reconcile man to Him, to bring man into relationship with Him, and and allow man to recognize that they are dependent upon Him. And so He's actually interested that man recognizes that that they need a relationship with God. And so everything that happens here on earth is actually an opportunity to come to that point.
Yes, and He gave us all free will, placed us here, and give us time to make that decision with the wisdom that we can find in the Bible, and not by your own, through your own arguments or intellectual research or whatever the case may be. So, and the irony is still that they are wrong. The answer is wrong. So you can call yourself an intellectual, but what does it say if your answer is wrong? So it is sometimes difficult if you reason in the way you were taught at schools and whatever to understand the Bible, and that's why you need to first accept and have faith that that is God's word and that's the truth, and then the Holy Spirit will help you to understand it. So you will get the support that you need if you ask for it. Okay, so then I'm just quickly going to mention a few things for interest's sake about the third choice, that is Venus, that they selected as the third choice with their logic. It's very dry, there's no evidence of water. There are extreme temperatures, it's obviously too hot, apparently between 462 and 500 degrees Celsius, hot enough to melt lead, and we are concerned about earth warming, so I'm just mentioning that again. Water will evaporate immediately. The atmosphere is thick, and the pressure on Venus is 75 to 100 times more than what you find on Earth. That will be very difficult for any human being to try and change. I think impossible.
Doesn't look like a good choice.
Yeah, obviously there was no evidence of life found yet, but research continues, so the money will still be spent. Apparently mild temperatures could be found about 50 kilometers above Venus. So that is sort of in the atmosphere. So I think what they have in mind there is to build a controlled environment in the atmosphere, not even on any type of surface. So that is just interesting to know, and I don't think we have to go into the rest of the planets on their list. They are also now referring to exoplanets. That means planets in other solar systems that they want to look at. And they show you a lot of nice images from space. I understand that they don't receive the pictures from the telescopes, they receive data. And somehow they create these images.
From the data.
So because we don't have the knowledge about that, I'm not 100% sure if those images are 100% correct. But that is now the world's image of what it looks like outside. So we can't go there and tell them it's not like that or it is like that, because we don't know. We have to either believe them or not believe them. Okay, so what concerns me is if you look at poverty and everything in the world, we can't deny it. Man did mess up a lot of things on earth, but I'm sure we can recover it. There are people with the knowledge to recover or to assist rivers to become like it should be again.
Yeah.
So if you but it might take money. Obviously, it will take money. But if you now look at them and the billions of dollars that they spent on these
Yes.
space races, if we could have used that to change Earth back to what it was. And even know about, or read a long time ago, we read a book from a guy called Schauberger who knew how to let rivers flow in desert areas again. And then obviously you can get the rest of the plants and stuff back. And you can change a desert back to a green area with nice rivers and everything.
Yeah, in most natural or natural environments, when they are left to go on their own, they recover.
They
in
recover
a
by
fairly short
themselves.
while. They recover.
In fairly quickly. Not
Yes.
you don't need 100 years
Yes.
or definitely not millions and
No, I
millions
mean,
of
you-
years
you-
for that to happen.
Soon you'll have your sort of what's considered as weeds or your pioneer plants colonizing the area. They create the soil, the right environment for bigger plants to grow, more permanent plants like the trees. And then that area starts recovering fairly quickly. So if left alone, those natural areas do recover.
So the entire ecosystem comes back.
Yes, it does.
And it supports each
Yes.
other. Yeah.
You soon, after leaving an area like that, even in town, in the city, you can see it. If a piece of land is left, there's lots of weeds coming up. It's a pioneer species. And what they do, they create the soil, they change the soil by their growth to make it suitable for other more permanent plants to come in.
It's
Yeah.
actually amazing.
Mm.
Even
Yeah.
during the Corona period, they spoke about things
Yes,
that
and how quick that
recovered
happened. That
in a very
happened.
short
Yeah,
period of
that-
time, which shows you don't need those,
Yes.
not even hundreds of years,
Yeah.
a year or two. So anyway, okay. So if we look at the Bible again, you will find in Revelation that God is going to destroy the earth at some or other time. It may be sooner than what most people are thinking. And that's something we can't prevent. That is God's plan. He can maybe postpone his plan, and if we all return to God, it can be postponed for a long time. But that's not something that's in our control. So what would have been the ideal in my mind, but it's not for me to say, is for people to stop competing with each other in terms of technology. And I don't say you should stop all technology, but specifically technology that will take over the role of God in people's lives, because you don't need that. You only
Yeah.
need to turn to Him. And what we can all, in the Bible, it's not only talking about destruction of the planet. There is also a promise, and believers can look forward to see the entire universe with explanations of how it was made and everything after this life. But there's also another promise in the Bible in terms of a new heaven and a new earth. Okay, so let's take a look at Revelation 21. Harold, will you be able to read that for us, please?
All right, Revelation 21. Then I saw a new heaven and earth, new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. He will wipe away fear from their eyes. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain, for the old order of things has passed away."
Thank you, Harold. We don't want anybody to be fearful of what can happen to the earth. As long as you believe in God, you are safe and you will be protected, and there is a better life waiting for you. And for people who don't understand this whole thing, is you must just remember we all received free will. This is our time to decide if we want to be with God or not. He doesn't want to force anybody to be his children. But it's so easy to become one of his children. There is nothing to fear. It's just a decision and a commitment that you need to make.
Yeah.
And you can one day know everything you want to know. And you will know the truth, not predictions by people you will not have to go and find the answer yourself. You can just ask to see how it was done.
Yeah, and in his word he also says, after the giving us free choice, free will, he says, for now know this, you can choose life or you can choose death.
And that's why we
And
are here.
so we
That's
can
our
choose.
time to choose, because if he doesn't give you that opportunity, you will ask him, but why should we be with you?
Yes.
You didn't give us a choice. So now is the time to make that choice.
Because he did give us the choice. So
Yeah, he
even
did. And he even helped us with showing us, like we've read earlier, you can see from nature that he made it. Because
Yes.
People can't make it. Really, we know for a fact that people can't make a plant that grows by itself. Even with the human robots that they're making these days, they can't make them from flesh and blood that repairs itself like we do, like we are. You simply can't do it. You have to make it from some other material. And it's still a machine, even though they are now concerned that those machines will develop their own will and do their own things, program their own stuff. And sometimes I'm a bit concerned that they sort of designing this for demons, because demons are normally using for a body to live in, and maybe they are trying to give them bodies to live in. So that I don't know, that's only speculation, but sometimes you wonder about this. But anyway, we should all remember God is on our side. We have nothing to fear. All you have to do is choose him and submit yourself to him, and then read his word to get to know him very well and do what he wants you to do. But thank you for joining us. Please join us again in our next talk on the human body's organs and why we need them. You'll find this to be very interesting. Please subscribe and leave your comments below, and be blessed until then.